Um, so yeah, we are going to be launching a new, spectacular new feature on our blog in Akronism, which will be kind of related to Akronisms,
right.
or things particular to Akron, and you're kind of the go-to guy.
Geek.
Yeah, so I guess I'd first ask you, you've had a pretty established career, and it seems you've had the opportunity where if you didn't want to stay in Akron, you could pretty much go anywhere, or maybe not anywhere, but a variety of places that for many might offer more than Akron. So what attracts you to Akron in general?
Well, first of all, I mean, a writer can do what a writer does almost anywhere. It's not really limited to where you are, but at some point, and pretty early, I kind of realized that the best thing for me to be writing about was place, and my place is Akron. I mean, if I went to another place, I don't think I could ever have as organic a relationship and understanding of it as I do with the place that I'm from, which is true of anybody. And I just happen to be from a place that seems to me like it's unusually rich in weirdness and also sort of like warm textures, and also like dramatic, epic sweep of history, and all the kinds of things that are interesting to write about. So I kind of feel lucky that I got born into an interesting place like this.
Yeah, because it kind of reflects in I guess, when your work, just focusing on the books that you published you did for us, for the University of Akron Press, Wheels of Fortune, which was the rubber industry, which is kind of...
And also the first time I started thinking about this stuff as subject matter, beyond just the obvious, it was a history of Akron, but like what's the spirit of this place, and what's the, what's unique about here that says something larger about all places. Everybody has a sense. If you say home to any American, they'll have a specific image, an idea of what home means, and so it becomes everybody's personal interpretation of that becomes a metaphor for everybody's sense of place.
I think that's a pretty good segue into, I didn't give an intro, this is David Giffels, and we're talking about Akronisms, or things particular to Akron, which happens to be both the name of the blog and a feature which we are launching here, and I think that kind of gives a good intro into Akronisms, because we mentioned Wheels of Fortune, which is rubber, which is kind of the typical Akron thing that people think of, but you've also done work with, you did a book on Devo, which is an Akron export that is also very particular to Akron, but has branched out into more a wider picture in there. And then it seems like your other work too has done that.
And All the Way Home is very much a book about putting down roots in our case, in a former tire executive's home that because the industry declined, places like that became available to people like my family. So that's part of the story of Akron, or story of a place that has seen a great rise and fall, is who's there to pick up the pieces after the fall occurs.
One of the intriguing things about All the Way Home is that it offers that kind of more intimate view of our city. So it seems like you've kind of spanned all of that. Is there anything in particular in the line of Akronisms that stands out for you, or is there
like every city has its enduring image or icon. Like St. Louis has its arch, and Paris has the Eiffel Tower, and New York has the Statue of Liberty, and Akron's probably most enduring and recognizable one is the Blimp, which, like, if you take all of those things and you look like which of these things just doesn't belong, it's the Blimp. It's such a weird, like, cartoonish, surreal, like, could be seen as almost like a, like a malevolent kind of like gray looming image, or could be seen as like, I mean, there was a Goodyear PR guy once who referred to the blimps to me as giant puffy grandmothers, like, because they have this big balloon full of good feeling, and so it's like it's fraught with, imagery and potential symbolism, and also it's one of those things that like anyone around the country or probably around the world knows what the Goodyear Blimp is, but they think it's the thing that flies over the Super Bowl, and we're the only people in the whole world who it's just the thing that like goes across over campus like once or twice a week. There's the Goodyear Blimp, and it's like it would be kind of like the Eiffel Tower, like sort of popping up for 5 minutes, like some like regular like Old Faithful or something, and then going away.
It kind of is like a moving or roaming landmark.
Yeah.
Remember because I grew up in Akron too, and I remember being a kid, seeing it at night lit up when it was around dusk, and it just floating by and had this strange kind of ethereal aspect to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's growing up in the time after the rubber boom and all of that, when Akron was kind of not in its height,
right.
It's in a way a reminder, and also something that keeps on.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, something triumphant about this thing that continues to rise up. It is sort of phoenix-like. It just keeps rising. But it's also really goofy and weird. I mean, if you stop and look at it. But we always do. I mean, I've said this many, many times before, but the one sort of like trait that Akronites share is no matter how many times it's flown over, as soon as you hear that drone, everybody looks up. It never gets old. So.
I think we take it for granted, and I assume that everybody else has this blimp that sometimes floats by, but other cities don't have it.
Yeah, I bet it doesn't happen in Nashville.
And that's a great. We actually had a list of things that we've been compiling around the office, and the blimp was a big one on there. There was the blimp, and of course the air dock, which is the resting place of where the blimp sleeps, and
right.
other things happen, and I don't know. I'm gonna go into all that. I think we got enough on there. Unless you want to talk about more stuff.
No, not really. I mean, it's interesting to me because the book that I'm working on now is even more directly about identity, place and identity, and it's definitely about Akron. But I'm trying to draw larger ideas out of the things that we specifically embrace. And one of the things that's become really clear to me, and I think this is probably true of all places, but I know it of my place, is how important it is when you associate your self-identity with the place that you're from. How important it is for that place to have a larger identity in the world. So I mean, I know, like, Akronites are always, like, if somebody says Devo, we make sure we say, oh, they're from Akron. And if somebody says, the Goodyear Blimp, we're like, that's from Akron. And we're, like, very aware of our kind of, like, LeBron James. We take great pride in the fact that he's from here and still plays here, because we don't have, this whole large sort of, like, common identity. And so we cling to the things that people recognize us for. And so we're always, kind of looking for those things.
Kind of compiling our, identity out of these seemingly disparate elements. But
exactly.
To us are very cohesive.
Yeah, and how do they fit together? Like, what do sauerkraut balls and, like red energy dome hats and the Goodyear Blimp and, LeBron James have in common? It's, well, obviously, they're all the same thing.